Today's show is all about
character delays. Hey guys, welcome to That Pedal Show. Dan here.
Mick here, hello. Character delays then.
Yeah, indeed.
This is interesting. Dan and I we've got a big guest in today.
We do.
So we thought we'd sneak in a regular TPS before we get going on the big guest. And we were having a glass of beer last night, actually.
We had a lovely, refreshing ale.
Yes, it was nice. And said, what about character delays then? Because regular viewers of the show will know that Dan and I are always using stuff like Echorecs, Echoplexes, analogue delays, digital delays, oil cans. We don't use oil cans quite so much. Tape delays, all these things. And certainly, speaking personally, before I met you, I genuinely didn't have a clue.
Right.
I thought delay was delay was delay. And the reason I didn't use it was because the only delays that were available to me were kind of plinky, hard-sounding...
Okay. Sure.
Yeah. So, and then, in the years that ensue, this wonderful discovery of delay has happened, on my part anyway. And it dawned on me that that's probably the case for a lot of people that watch this show.
Right.
Like, if you're into your delays, then you probably know all this stuff already. But if you don't, and you're not into your delays, you might think, well, what is the difference between an Echorec and an Echoplex?
Yeah.
And what is the difference between an analog and a digital delay? And what about multi-head and single-head and all that? Because we've done deep dives on all these topics before.
Yeah.
But we've never kind of done a roundup.
Like a reference of them all together and say, yeah.
And we deliberately haven't chosen anything old or esoteric here. So there's nothing original. There's no original Echoplex or...
No unobtanium.
No, exactly. All of this stuff... Let's just double check. You can go out and buy tomorrow.
Yeah.
It's all available.
Yep.
Even this?
Even that, I think, I'm not sure if they're making a version of that now. I'm not sure. They've made a few different versions.
Yeah.
But there are, you can get those. You can still get those.
And one of the things that struck me, just doing a bit of, Dan and I don't like to do too much research, but a tiny bit of Googling before the show today. All these things that we're talking about as character delays all existed before the things we think of as no character delays.
Right.
So they were the originals. And I find that interesting.
Sure.
And why do we call them character delays?
Well, it's because they impart a certain sound onto your tone. And whether that's because of the preamp, whether that's because of the modulation and the repeats or whatever, they add their own character that's sort of unique to them to the sound.
Yeah, and I think the thing that defines them is how the delay is made.
Right, yep.
So whether it's made using magnetic tape, whether it's made using drum, whether it's made using...
A pickup swashing around in a can of oil.
In a can of a tuna can full of oil, or using, Bucket Brigade device chips.
Yep.
So let's try and be as brief as we can possibly be after that extended intro, so that when you leave this video, you'll hopefully go away with, actually, you know what? I think the Echorec is the sound for me.
Right.
Or the Echoplex is the sound for me. Or analog delay is the sound for me. Or, you know what? I'm really happy with my straight digital delay.
Sure.
A bit of clearing up.
Like it. I really like it. Well, let's start with the digital delay then. And the reason we'll start with this one is so you can hear what the digital delay does is as close to anything, gives you like a mirror image of what you've played.
And this is the newest technology of any that we're going to talk about today. digital delay. It was the last development.
Yes, digital delay is the last, and continues to be developed, because once you go digital with software, there's so much you can do. Yeah. So a lot of the recreations, what they do, like for example, the Boonar. Obviously, the Boonar doesn't have a drum in it with heads. It's a digital recreation of the sound of the drum. And so that's what digital has enabled.
Then let's make that distinction. So some of these pedals use digital technology to sound like old things.
Yes.
So we're going to gloss over that. When we say digital delay, we mean clean delay that doesn't have that's not trying to be something old and analog.
Sure.
In today's context.
So the amps we're using today, we have the Marshall amp. I'm hopeless. I'm absolutely hopeless.
It's a 1987 X 50-watt plexi.
And we have the V140 from Victory.
Super Duchess.
And together. Okay, so what I'm going to do is just add a digital delay on top of that. And have a listen to the repeat, and you'll hear that there's no, like with certain analog delays and things.
As we'll hear,
the repeats.
It's just the perfect recreation of what you've played, isn't it?
Yep. Yeah.
Yep, totally. So users of digital delay, all kinds of people down the years. A big surprise for a lot of people was Scotty Moore in his later years had a DD2 or a DD3, not quite sure which, and that was his slapback sound.
Right.
Worked great for him. But what you hear there in the digital delay is the exact repeat of what you've just played. And one of the issues that a lot of people find with that, certainly to bring it back what I said at the head of the show, the reason I found that so tough to deal with is because it just got in the way of everything I was trying to play. So if I'm trying to play something,
it's all over it.
You're sort of forced into playing to the rhythm of the delay.
Sure.
Obviously, you can turn that delay down, the effect level down. You can also turn the time down.
Yeah. Another really good thing with digital delay is it's like an old producer's trick. Instead of using reverb, if we turn the delay time all the way up, so here we go. Just have a skank on that. And I'm going to turn the effect level down. And I'm going to kick on some Love with a Box of Rock and just have some solo-y swang for us.
That's really cool because it's completely out of the way of what you're playing there.
Yeah, but because it is a really accurate representation, it sort of sits there.
Yeah,
doesn't sort of move. So it's a really nice alternative to using reverb. So I like digital delay for that sort of stuff.
You hear it on loads of records, actually.
Yeah.
When you buy a new pair of headphones that are really revealing and you hear all the plugins and effects pedals that you've never heard before.
Yep.
Those sorts of things start to become apparent. Okay, we're not really here to talk about that today. That's just the context of what a lot of people consider to be delay, right?
Sure.
Modern digital delay. Let's go in reverse chronology then. So the next technology back from digital, and now we're starting to talk about character, right? Because the sound of the delay imparts a character.
Sure.
Is analog delay.
Analog delay.
Boss came out with in the same form factor as your C1.
Yes.
There was a delay machine in 78.
Right, yep.
I think that came along in like 81 or something.
Yeah, early 80s.
So we've gone back a few years. We're now in the 80s, which was really, even though the Electro-Harmonics Memory Man existed in the 70s, it was really the 80s was the key time for the analog delay, wasn't
Absolutely.
it?
Yep, absolutely.
Let's set this up as we had it before. And we'll just do a quick comparison between a straight digital delay and an analog delay, yeah?
Yep.
You hear all that noise and artifact that gets added in as the Bucket Brigade chips do their job, and there's loss all the way down there.
And you just end up with this at the end.
But why is that great?
Oh, it's warm. It doesn't, as the tone of the repeats sort of darkens, it doesn't get in the way of what you're playing, so you don't end up hearing any transients. They're classic.
Come on then.
So, as you heard, there's loads of delay on there. And it does, of course, it gets a bit messy, but not in the same way that the digital does.
Because it takes off the front of the smack of the front
Exactly.
of the note.
You don't get those same transients.
And the EQ of the repeat tails off into darkness.
Yeah.
So it not only is it not in the way in the first place, it increasingly gets out of the way as it tails off. All right. So analog delay is the sound we know and love.
Yep.
Then
Can I just one last quick thing with the analog delay is that it does this really cool thing called self-oscillation, which you'll have heard all the time, and maybe you're wondering how you do it. Basically, with analog delay, if you turn up the level of the delay and the feedback of the delay, you get the output of the delay ends up back at the input, and then it starts oscillating. So if you just hit a note for me to get me started. So
one note.
And you'll hear that everywhere. But
yeah.
That's just one of the great things about analog delay because the process is so organic. It does stuff like that, brilliant.
Tape delays would do that too, by the way.
Yes, of course, yeah.
But it was really brought to the fore in analog delay, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got a basic analog delay. We know that the core sound of it is quite different from a modern digital delay, or at least I can't say modern digital delay anymore.
No,
digital delay. Nothing modern about digital delay anymore. So then we get into Electro-Harmonics.
Modulated.
Yeah,
analog.
Memory Man. And for me anyway, analog delay is always going to be about this.
Yeah, totally. So what the Memory Man did, which is genius, is it took the repeats and it basically added an effect. It added modulation. And you could either, in the original Memory Man, you could either choose chorus or vibrato. So it's different than just a normal chorus, whereas your whole signal is modulated. What the modulated delay does, it only modulates the repeats. It only modulates those echoes. And basically that sits on top of your direct sound. So again, Michael, if you would mind having strongage. And so what I'll do is I'll turn the modulation off.
Yeah.
So we can hear just a straight delay sound from the memory.
Sure.
So you hear it has all that warmth and everything analog goodness, but now I'm going to turn up the depth and feedback.
Yeah.
Depth and rate of the modulation.
And this is only on the repeats.
This is only on the repeats.
And obviously you have to play Andy Summers chords.
Of course.
If you use modulated delay.
So you'll hear, if we just have a listen to, if I turn the blend all the way up to get rid of the dry signal, you'll hear maybe a little bit of vibrato, but it's not until you hear that layered over the original sound.
Because it's creating a chorus.
Because it's creating a chorus effect.
Yeah.
The difference is, like with the chorus, the delay times is like between 18 and 30 milliseconds, right? Whereas the delay time is 800 milliseconds.
Yeah.
So that's the difference. So if you think of that as a chorus with this massive delay time. So just play for us again. I'll turn this all the way up.
Such a great sound.
It's unreal. I absolutely love it.
Such a great sound. And it's that sort of sound that, you might want to blow a load of lead over it. But for me, just playing chords and letting them go and hearing it kind of come in and out.
Yeah.
What a glorious noise.
Yep, absolutely.
So analog delay. Do we have anything much more to say about that, really?
That's some clever things that happen now with analog delay. So, for example, this is a memory man that has tap tempo.
Yeah.
So there are things that they've done that, keeping that analog process.
Yes.
Which is really important for that sound. But tap tempo in this one, if you look at things like the Delay Llama Extreme,
adding
jam
digital
pedals,
control,
adding digital control to the analog Chase Bliss as well.
So you can get stepped pitch repeats
all
and things
that
like
stuff.
that.
Yeah. So that even though doing that stuff in digital land is really easy, some really clever people out there still taking the modulation of those repeats to the nth degree.
Yeah, and still using the Bucket Brigade analog chips to
Absolutely.
create the delay in the first place is a aesthetic and a texture all its own, isn't
Totally.
it? Very much so.
Yep. So there are ways to keep that character of analog, but there are products out there that if you want to be really experimental with it, brilliant.
Okay, so we've done clean digital delay. We've done warmer and modulated analog delay. If we step back next, the next chronological step back here, believe it or not, is the Space Echo. 1974, multi-head tape echo.
Yeah.
So please watch other shows that Dan and I have done on tape echoes. We've done probably 3 or 4 now, fairly in depth if you want to take a deeper dive. But multi-head tape echo, 1974, is tape echo. Say it just briefly. Came about in the 1950s and was the predominant way of creating echo sounds in studios. Credited to Les Paul actually for the first use.
Doesn't surprise me.
In 1950 with How High the Moon.
Wow.
Because he's using the tape machine, right? The actual recording tape machine rather than a specific echo machine.
Yeah.
So that's how far back that technology goes. Fast forward to 74, Roland, inspired by what Maestro had done with the Echoplex, by all accounts, and we'll move back to that in a sec, stick a number of tape heads in one unit.
Right.
So you've got not just one repeat, but you've got 3 heads in a Space Echo?
3 heads in a Space Echo. So the difference, the main difference is that in the single head unit, with the repeats, you take that echo and feed it back into itself and you get more repeats. But the difference is the repeats are timed equally. With a multi-head unit, your main signal comes along, it hits the first head and then that can repeat, but then it hits the second head. And so you get these different timed repeats and you get these patterns depending on the heads that you have selected. So
we have an original Space Echo, which you can see up the back there, an RE201.
Yep. Glorious thing it is.
And we also have the more modern Echo Fix, and we've done deep dive shows on those, so please go back and watch them.
Yep.
But this is the new Boss. Well, I say the new; it's blooming old now, but they still make it. The Boss RE20 version.
Yep.
Of that.
Yep.
Dan, let's have a listen. Such a cool sound. You don't have to have all 3 heads on. You can just have one head on, which is hopefully this.
So they're the different individual heads, right? The first head, which is closer to the record head. So the first playback head, the second playback head, which is longer away. Therefore, the delay time is longer. And the third playback head, which is, again, further away still. So that gives you your 3 heads. And then you can get the combinations after that.
And that multi-head thing, really, the Space Echo certainly wasn't the first multi-head tape echo. That happened in the late 50s. And think about, well, the Shadows being...
Yeah. And WEM copycats and all that stuff.
Yeah. Miazzi
yes.
from Italy. Italy's relevant in our story. And how you create those kind of multi-tapped repeats that I would associate with Hank Marvin anyway as that classic sound. But that's it, multi-heads. It can sometimes require that you play with a more rhythmic style so that you're using them as part of the rhythm.
Sure.
But not necessarily. Think of something like Wonderful Land by the Shads, or... So I'm a closet Shads fan. it's just a glorious sound, and it is the sound of ages, that multi-head
Totally.
tape echo.
Yep.
And over the years, there have been many attempts to recreate it digitally, some of which get very close. But once you hear a proper multi-head tape echo,
You're done.
you're done. There's
Yeah.
not much going back. All right. It's tempting to go to the Bunar next, but we won't chronologically, because chronologically the next thing back is the Maestro Echoplex,
Yes. And
which
so,
instead of being a multi-head
yep.
tape echo is a single head tape
Yes.
echo.
Yes. So here you go. You have Schwungage on this one.
And this was made famous by all kinds of people. I guess Jimmy Page might be the person we think of
Right.
first with the Echoplex.
I might not have this set up the way that you like it because I cannot for the life of me see what's going on those knobs.
No, we can't read the knobs, so we'll work it out. It's all good. Actually, should say that this is the Catlin Bred modern remake of the EP3, right, which has two main important points. One, it has this preamp up front, which is a big sound of the Echoplex.
Yeah.
It's one of the reasons why Jimmy Page used it, because it pushed his Marshalls in a way he liked, and other amps. Secondly, this one has multi-modes in it, so it won't only do an EP3, it'll also do other stuff like the Memory Man. But
Will it?
I believe so, yeah.
Okay, awesome.
But we'll leave it in the straight EP3 standard mode.
Okay. That is absolutely gorgeous.
It's such a great sound. Some of the key things
Far
about
out, man.
one of the reasons that people like tape echoes, and particularly the EP3 Echoplex style tape echo, is because there was a couple of things you could do, but even before we start talking about echo time and delay time, one was you could push the amount of signal going to the record head.
Yes.
So you could start to overdrive the delay a bit, which I hope might be this one here.
So an important thing about the Echoplex is it didn't use companders. So it used that lovely preamp to push as much level to tape as it could.
Yeah.
And then you get that saturation.
So you can get the crunch on the
Exactly.
repeat if
Yeah,
you
yeah,
want.
yeah.
The other thing that happened in tape machines as they aged was you'd get physical wear on the tape and the heads. So you would get what's called wow and flutter,
Yeah.
which is when a tape machine starts functioning imperfectly. You get this artifact in the delay sound. What I love about that is it's yet another example of how everything that wasn't supposed to happen in the guitar industry is what created the best sounds, right?
Yep.
So, you know,
Because that's the sound of a tape machine going bad,
yeah, it's the sound of it breaking.
of a malfunction.
No, you know, Leo Fender didn't want his amps to overdrive,
No.
did he? He certainly had no intention of Jimi Hendrix standing on stage at Woodstock and doing that to a Strat.
No,
did he? It
that's
just wasn't his
hilarious.
thing. So, as always, you know, the imperfections in the design are what make it so cool.
Yeah.
I think this knob here does that.
The other really important thing is listen to the tail of those echoes and listen to how it's not just the top end, but the bottom end as
Yeah.
well. It's incredible.
Key sound of tape, isn't it? Is
Yeah.
how it filters, and that's
Absolutely.
another whole
It's
thing in
massive.
this discussion of what a character delay is what the EQ of the repeats is. I'm not sure if that mode does do the wow and flutter thing. Maybe it's the next mode over, is it?
That is what it's doing. It just doesn't do it very much on that.
It's just
one
quite
mode. Yeah.
subtle. Let's go to the next mode, see what the next mode does. Yeah, Mode 2 is obviously a darker, more aged version of Mode 1.
Sure.
I think Belly Pop Deluxe owners will know this, but that's what it sounds like. It sounded much more aged.
Part of that preamp as well. The preamp is quite dark sounding, but it is glorious. And the way that drives an amplifier, so lots of people were using EP3s without any echo at all, just to drive the front of the amplifier.
Yeah.
So the really good EP3 type units, they have that preamp in there because that is such an integral part to that sound. But that's certainly one that you and I both really, really like.
Yeah, there are a few tape delay, modern sort of emulations of really good tape delays. Belly Pop Deluxe is probably our favourite. The other really great one is the Empress tape delay.
Man. Yeah.
There's a number out there,
Yeah.
and you know, most of them get pretty close, but the Belly Pop Deluxe really nails it.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you say epoch or something in the USA, because whenever Dan and I say Belly Pop, everyone thinks it's Belly Pop.
Belly pock.
Yeah.
Like belly pork.
So I don't know if epoch is pronounced differently in the US. It might be.
Okay.
Might be epoch or something.
Epoch.
Please don't say it's epoch. Please don't say it's that. Right. Single head tape delay in the Echoplex style.
Mm-hmm.
Let's move back again. Now we could go to two places now. Let's go to the Bunar.
Yes, indeed.
So we were talking about multi-head, right? Where in the Space Echo and indeed in multi-head tape units that came before it, you had multiple record heads done by magnetic tape running around these heads. The Echorec is something quite different.
Indeed. So the Echorec uses a drum and it has magnetic wire around this drum that's been milled down flat. And that wire is electromagnetically charged, same way as tape is. And that the heads, as the drum rotates, the heads basically sit against that rotating drum, and that's the sound of the Echorec.
Made famous, of course, by
Davy G.
David Gilmour, probably the most famous user of the Echorec, which is interesting because obviously that's not until the 70s.
Yeah. Sid Barrett got there before him.
Okay, so that would have been late 60s Floyd, would it?
Yeah, Sid Barrett, and basically everyone said, yes, that sounds really good. We'll all have one as well.
Yeah, because you'll hear it in a sec, but there's times where you think it's reverb, but it's actually delay.
Yeah.
This magnetic drum stuff came out in the 50s as well.
Yeah, so they were using it. Actually, I think it's earlier than that. I think the magnetic drum stuff. There's some stories of like they were using it to record conversations in the war.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I mean, the technology is old.
Yeah. But it was the mid 50s Vincent Echorec that kind of that nailed it on, and then it evolved from there. So let's have a listen to it, Daniel. So as you can see, these buttons on the top of the Bunar represent 4 heads, and we'll turn them on and off. The tuning there? It's those shorter times, isn't it, with loads of swell on?
Yeah. Wow. Who needs reverb?
That's where it gets into
Oh,
reverb. And
man.
if you listen, we were doing a pretty terrible job of it, but if you listen to early Floyd records, that is the sound you will hear.
Unreal.
Yeah.
Unreal. Wow.
Really cool. So, quite different from a multi-head tape delay.
Yep.
Certainly in the way those repeats swell against one another.
Sure.
And used with a faster delay time, it definitely gets you more into reverb territory. There are a number of really good Echorec types. The Boonar is one, made by Dorna Prince. Catlin Bread. In fact, Catlin Bread's very strong in the character delay market, as we can partially see today. They also do a really good Echorec type. Trying to think if there was any others. There was Echosex did one for a minute there, didn't they?
Yeah,
Actually,
okay.
the really good inexpensive is the Echosex Baby, but it only has one head. So it's the
Right.
sound of that
The single head thing.
single head thing.
Yeah.
But it's really cool and inexpensive.
Yeah.
All right.
Very good.
So we've sort of stepped out of we've stepped sideways in our chronology here. The last one we're going to look at is oil can. Neither of us are particularly knowledgeable about oil cans.
No, it's the oil can thing. If you imagine they've got a belt attached to that tin, and inside you've got this
Ray Ludlow
viscous-
is the guy's name.
Oh, okay. But there's this viscous fluid, and inside there's like a pickup in there.
Yeah.
And the oil is electrostatically charged as opposed to the tape, which is electromagnetically charged, right? And as the pickup goes around, does the delay.
So it's the viscosity
Yeah.
of the material that it's sloshing around in
Exactly.
that gives the character of the delay.
And when you hear it, it's like, yeah, it's sloshing around in something. It's really interesting.
So it adds vibrato.
Yeah, right.
You know, as its most obvious effect is vibrato, which is, you know, pitch modulation, which I guess on the modern remakes. The other one worth mentioning is the Old Blood Noise Endeavour's Black Fountain, which Simon reliably informs us that Rycuda probably uses, because Rycuda is the oil can delay geezer.
Wow,
really.
okay, cool.
I want to hear it with a bit of down tuning. Could you turn the delay time down nice and short, please?
Yes, indeed.
That's awesome.
It's mega.
So I was just willing this guitar to give me a bit more trouble, but it wasn't happening.
But it is quite dark. If you hear it,
Yeah.
If you hear the guitar by itself and you kick that on, it's a really dark delay.
What a great sound. Nice, I would say. A lot of people use an analog delay for a slapback kind of sound. I think the oil can delay is a really nice alternative to that.
Yeah, for a different sort of warm, as you know, a different warm texture as opposed to the straight analog thing.
Yeah. And then that, you know, kind of brings us back to where we started the show, which is these delays. One of the reasons that we ended up at the Boss DD3T is because people were trying to get rid of all this character from the delays because it was too messy, or it imparted too much unpredictable nuance on the tone, which people were trying to get rid of. They're like, no, all I want to hear is my guitar exactly the same as I played it. But of course, as always in this crazy thing that we call the guitar world, it's those idiosyncrasies, it's those things that don't work quite properly, it's the things that add the colour and the flavour that gives music its unique sound and feel, right?
Yep, totally. It's really interesting when the first digital delay came out, and obviously people were very excited, and you couldn't give away analog delays, you know. But now the analog thing is huge because that character thing, it's more than just the sum of its parts. You know?
Well, yeah, because the old machines had other problems, didn't they? Like maybe the bypass sound was awful, or it needed significant gain makeup, or it dropped so much treble off it made your Marshall sound rubbish. Right. All of which is largely solved in modern pedal boards with buffers and other tweakaroos that we have these days.
Sure.
Let's finish then, Dan, on we started with the DD3T there as an example of a just straight clean digital delay. We went back through the ages and talked about the main schools of character delay, which are tape, drum, oil can, modulated analog, and straight analog. Yeah. Now there may be others that we've missed, but these are the ones that have really defined the sound of rock over those years. Where are we now?
So the other really important one is stereo delay. Stereo delay being two separate delay lines into basically left and right. Yeah. And you know you can do it with two analog delays, just splitting the signal and having them go left and right with different timings. But the digital stereo delay is a really, really cool thing.
Which I guess we saw first in rack form, did we?
Yeah. And there's loads of great ones in those racks. If you think of the old like Yamaha SPX 90 and those sorts of things. They're really cool.
The Digicon Quadra.
All that stuff. But I've just set this up in the Echo system for just a simple left and right analog delay. Stereo delay even.
It's an addictive sound.
That wasn't a great example, but you hear the idea is that you've got some sort of left and right thing. Andy Timmons, listen to him, stereo delay, big part of his sound.
Yeah.
It's really great.
Do you do like a quarter in one and an eighth in another? Is that a common way to do it?
Yeah, or a quarter in one and a dotted eighth in the other.
Okay.
Is another common way to do it.
Yeah.
And the stereo delay lets you set up the different timings and subdivisions of those times.
Yeah. Very cool.
Awesome.
So obviously a lot of you will be screaming at the screen, oh my God, this is all old stuff. The delays can do so much more these days. They can. One of the next shows Dan and I are going to film is the Timeline Still King?
Yeah.
Which picks up from everything we've spoken about today and really looks at what modern Timeline's 10 years old now, is it? Must be almost that.
The Timeline was a step change in delay, and I still see it everywhere. And so this is sort of the preamble to that. It's like, this is where we're at.
Yeah, this is what came before.
This is what came before.
Albeit modern versions thereof.
Yeah.
And the Echo system is a sort of glimpse of what came next, because that does everything.
Mm-hmm.
Does simulations of most of all of this and a lot more, obviously. Many of you will already know that. All right. I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, totally.
It sort of explains why on a lot of pedal boards you see more than one delay pedal.
Mm-hmm.
Because of the character it imparts to the sound.
Absolutely.
And, we hope you've heard some sounds today that make you think, oh, yeah, that's that sound. I really like that sound.
If you've got to pick one, what's it going to be?
It's tougher than normal for me.
Pick two.
Okay, so as a straight delay that I would use absolutely all the time is the Belly Pop Deluxe.
Yep.
Hands down.
Yep.
Echoplex single repeat delay is to me just the most wonderful thing. After that, probably an Echorec style.
Okay. I was really impressed with the DM2. I thought that sounded fantastic, and my Memory Man is
Memory Man
big
is
thing
you,
for me.
isn't it?
Yeah, totally.
You love that.
Yeah.
But then Space Echo is you too. You got to have them all.
Yeah. There's no way I could pick only 4.
Yeah. That's why we have so many delay pedals.
Brilliant. There you go. Hope you enjoyed that. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe if you haven't subscribed already. Massive thank you to our preferred retailers in the UK and Europe is
Anderton's Music of Guildford in Surrey, where you can buy pretty much
everything.
Everything here.
Yep. And our friends in Australia.
Pedal Empire of Brisbane, Queensland.
Also, a massive thank you to everyone that's gone to thatpedalshowstore.com and grabbed t-shirts and hoodies and beanies. And
the season of goodwill is upon us.
Indeed.
So
go and check out our wares.
See how good your will is. And go to thatpedalshowstore.com. Please.
And finally, a massive thank you to our patrons on Patreon.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you so much. Brilliant. Have a fantastic day. We'll see you on Monday for the VCQ where we can talk about delays.
Awesome.
Fab. See you later. Bye.